Welcome back to the morning show here on Arise News. The storm caused over the weekend by the personal use of an aeroplane from the presidential fleet by Hanan, one of President Muhammadu Buhari's children, is not yet over. Something of a national debate has ensued from that development, with different interpretations being given regarding what the Constitution says or doesn't say about it. For greater insight into this development, we're back in the Arise Abuja studio to have a chat with Garba Shehu, Senior Special Assistant to President Muhammadu Buhari on media and publicity. He will also be speaking on other issues of currency affecting the Nigerian presidency and Nigeria in general. Welcome to the program.
Good morning.
Good morning, Garba Shehu.
Good morning.
Welcome to the morning show.
Good morning, all of you there.
Yes.
Happy New Year.
Happy
It's
New
good
Year.
to see you. Yes, Happy New Year. Well, Garba Shehu, I see that you've been defending the president's daughter over allegations that she's not entitled to a trip on her own, in her own capacity in any of the presidential jets. Yeah. But you say that, this is not the case. This is not a matter for the Constitution, and that she was on an unauthorized trip, approved by the president himself. Do you want to shed more light on this? And why do you think there's so much, furore over a trip to Bauchi by the president's daughter in a presidential jet?
Well, again, thank you for giving us this opportunity. And let me begin by saying that I think a lot of people have rushed into judgment, describing the visit as a personal one. They are not privy to the messaging behind the trip. It is therefore inappropriate for anyone to, first of all, dismiss the trip as a private one. I have no information as to why the president authorized the trip. He must have his reasons. And I don't think the president owes it to anyone to say that tomorrow I will send my daughter to Bauchi. She will undertake this mission or that mission for me. Of course, we've been told that there's photography out of hobby or professionalism by her. It could be part of the brief. It could be some other things, and that this was just an addition to this. Now, the thing about all of these things is that what we are saying is that the rule book says the president and the first family, the vice president, the Senate president, and the Speaker of the House of Representatives, and any other person authorized by the president. So there is a room there for discretion for the president to decide what to do and how to do this. This young lady is a member of the first family. She is duly entitled by norm, by existing rule governing the usage of presidential aircraft, to do so. And let me also explain that a lot of the opinions, a lot expressed by some pretenders to a knowledge of what is going on. Look, this is not Nigeria 001, the equivalent of the Air Force One used by the President of the United States of America. Nigeria 0 is a call sign for the aircraft, that aircraft in which the President is inside. So all of the things that people are saying about the paraphernalia of office, in any case, anybody who had observed this aircraft as shown in pictures, it is that one that the president had said the Air Force of Nigeria should use. But it is still managed by the Presidential Air Fleet. So it is under the purview of the presidency. There is absolutely no doubt about it. But that having been said, the issue is why the furore, why all of the, I don't want to call it noise, why all of the expression of diverse opinions, the arguments are. Well, two things. One is that Nigerians obviously are entitled to criticize their own government. And don't forget that today we're in the digital age. The social media has made everyone, all of the millions of Nigerians, IT journalists, anybody with a handheld set, and what, they can take pictures, they can broadcast news to millions of people, and so therefore opinions freely flow, and nobody is thinking of restricting all of that. But there are also people who ride on the free train of publicity, and maybe if they don't find themselves in news for 2-3 days, they probably fall sick. So we understand what is playing out.
Thank you for that context. It's very important. But there's something that you said, that the president doesn't owe an explanation. I disagree on that score. The president should be accountable to the Nigerian public. And I also want to offer you a reason for what we've described as noise. It's because Nigerians voted for President Buhari. We've known him. He's been in the public eye really all my life. And he's known as an austerely simple man, especially when you compare him to the rest of the political class. He's almost ascetic, like a monk, a man of very simple taste. So the idea of any kind of profligacy from President Buhari raises eyebrows. So that's probably to explain that. And with regards to your comment just now on social media, you've been one of the proponents of regulating it. And yes, because people must not be allowed to just disseminate and share fake news willy-nilly. But how do you draw that line and create a balance between protecting the vulnerable and telling the truth and censorship?
Okay. Now, let me say that I think that noise wasn't exactly my own word. I said it came, and I said, no, that's not the right word to use. Argument over all of these things. And I said the people are entitled to it. The president of Nigeria is not running away from accountability. What we are saying is that he is entitled to some measure of privacy. If the president has a private has a message that in his own view is not intended for the bus station and the airport and all also, and then he whispers to his daughter, I think that, yes, you are the president of Nigeria, you are accountable, but it mustn't be that you are entitled to no space for privacy. So when I said that he can, in his privacy, disclose or somebody on a mission and say, get this done for me, it is not everything that you put in the public domain. That's why we have the Secret Service. That's why we have all of these things, and these things are governed, by some measure of privacy. Now, as to the president being simple and using this in a way that you think contradicts his own or the view of Nigerians that have him, this is a president who has put in place perhaps the biggest restriction that anybody could think of in the usage of the presidential air fleet. In the first place, we are aware that this had been reduced on his coming to office because some had been given to the Air Force and they had used them fighting Boko Haram. And all. This particular aircraft, as I saw in the picture, is in the service of the Air Force. So therefore, that's why perhaps it is not branded with the paraphernalia of the presidency. But that doesn't take away the right of Nigerians to ask these questions. They are entitled to it because this is their government. And for God's sake, if they don't criticize us, if they don't speak, we would be more worried if they keep quiet because we will not know what they are thinking. Then you brought in this issue of social media and you said that there's a need for, what we have said all the time is that the stakeholder community needs to come together and join the government in an effort spearheaded by our Minister of Information, which is to put in place some form of regulation so that there'll be protection for free speech itself, for the vulnerable members of society, for women, for children. You know that in a number of countries, the growing concern is that the social media is addictive as much as the drugs are. And children need to be protected. And the technology companies, they are very powerful, whether Google, WhatsApp, or whatever. And what do they use the information they have of me and yourself? And you see what is unfolding in the larger Europe, that these companies are being heavily fined frequently for misuse of information that is personal to you and I. In this country, nobody is checking anybody. And that's why fake news is a delight. It's a thing that everybody is dealing with and nobody is doing anything. And on this particular aircraft issue, it's interesting that, in fact, some of our respectable lawyers, you see the kind of opinions they are peddling. One of them already said there is no precedent in this. This has never happened, that a family member of a president has flown. But they think that there's no, that if Nigerians forget, if political parties like PDP forget, computers don't forget. The computers store all of the information. If you want, I can't describe, but you want to go back to 16 years of PDP, of how the presidential aircraft were used. It's there for you to inspect, and you'll be shocked by the details that will be contained. Under this government, even governors now pay money to fly presidential aircraft. They charter it. So there is extremely, effective control on the usage of presidential aircraft.
Thank you, Madam Garba Shehu, for sharing your viewpoint with regards to that situation at hand. I'd like to bring up another topical issue with you and get your opinion on this, and maybe also what the reaction from the presidency should be towards this situation. Last week on the show, our main discussion that we were having here was, of course, the fact that troops are being withdrawn from the northeastern parts of Nigeria that we know has been ridden with insurgency for years. People have been displaced for years, and we know how bad the situation has been. Now, this was particularly worrying, not only because of the state of insecurity in Nigeria, because at the same time, Chad were withdrawing their troops as well from the joint intervention plan that we had with our neighboring countries. So it seemed as though a state that was, or an area or region that was trying to be secured, was suddenly being thrown back into a lot of insecurity. And it's thrown people into a lot of anxiety. A lot of people don't really know what to think. The public are worried. Now, this can be echoed by a lot of reactions that we're seeing from other leaders in the country, such as state governors in the southwest that have set up and launched Operation Amotekun to protect people within the southwest region. And what we can see all around us is that Nigerians are worried about insecurity. And Nigerians at the same time also don't feel that there's been enough of a reaction or response from the presidency towards this anxiety. What do you have to say about that?
Well, first of all, I would like to say to you that, and I hope you'll agree with me, that Nigeria is a very difficult country, because I'm sure that if you just look back at the press, not too far back, you would see attacks on the government for putting so many troops, on the streets and in our cities and the states. And so therefore, you never win, really. When you put so many soldiers out there and they say, aha, you are militarizing. And then when you want to take them back, and then they say, no, this is not time for it. So we understand. And I'm not sure, the government is not worried about this. Now, but the thing to worry about is the misinformation that is, again, there. A lot of people who don't know, they just jump into things and then they confuse people. And I think that you are being nice by giving us this opportunity again. The key word there, as announced by the military authorities, was that there would be an assessment of the security situation in areas of the country where peace has returned. And upon that assessment, if there's satisfaction that those areas would no longer be opened to new threats and that the peace achieved has come to stay, then those troops have no business continuing to be there. You can deploy them to some other areas. So unless people just want to create panic in the country, there is nothing like a rush to withdrawal or anything that would throw areas into insecurity that they had suffered in the past. So please, Nigerians, be calm, and that this is a very responsible government, understanding that the primary responsibility of the government is to safeguard life and property of the. So wherever the military is required to be present to support the civil authority, they will not be taken away. They will remain there. As for the Chadian troops, I think the explanation had been given that it is a rotatory arrangement by the multinational joint task force, and that they had come on a given tour, on a given assignment, and in the assessment of the commanders in N'Djamena, of the multinational, that these troops now move out. And what our defense headquarters is saying that our own troops also are subject to be moved around the Lake Chad Basin area. And the indication clearly is that actually in the near future, you're going to hear about the movement of Nigerian troops going in there, because it's a shared responsibility. Chadians, Cameroonians, Nigerians, Niger, and Benin, which has joined from the other side, they are all in it, and they will help one another. So nothing will change by the withdrawal of the Chadians, because the Nigerian troops are there in their numbers, and they are capable of doing it. I mean, we have a history of doing this job successfully, and they will not fail the nation.
Well, Garba, let me draw your attention to something else. About a month ago, the First Lady, Aisha Buhari, issued a statement attacking you directly, accusing you of disloyalty to your boss, accusing you of being used by a cabal in the presidency to undermine her. And she even concluded that her family has lost confidence in you. How have you been able to manage that situation, considering how powerful First Ladies could be?
Well, thank you for this question, Ruben. When all of that blew out in the open, I said nothing. My position still remains. I will say nothing as far as that is concerned. My respect for the president and his family has remained the same, and it will not change.
But I mean, generally, I mean, this is a very difficult job. You said Nigerians could be difficult, but you are also doing a rather difficult job. What kind of difficulties do you face on the job, apart from your concern about the conduct of the media and also of those who have become digital journalists with, all kinds of funny phones, expressing views that you may not find comfortable? What other difficulties are you facing?
Well, Ruben, you are there yourself, and you manage this office all alone by yourself. Luckily, I am having the partnership of Femi Adesina in doing this, so therefore, I think that the pressure is much less on ourselves than it was on you when you singly handled the office. But there are always challenges. I remember the famous column you wrote about the telephone not ringing. Now, it is my telephone that rings 24 hours of the day. And so it is amazing, because our own phones are available in the public space. And so therefore, yes, so the calls will come in, and we're not bothered at all, because because we are there, we are exposed, and so therefore we must suffer this. But, all of them, I have a campaign for 2015, you won, I haven't got a job, I haven't got a contract, I have gained nothing. That's the kind of regular thing you get every day. I have campaigned 2019, what can I get? And what do you do for me? And, they don't think that, you are just a small media person there who is instructed to make announcement, and if there's no announcement, you just keep quiet.
Well, that's modest of you, Madam Shehu. But I wanted to talk to you about calls for constitutional amendments, perennial calls for amending the 1999 Constitution, which we all agree is quite a flawed document. Where does the presidency stand on this? We've seen with this Moteko and the dust that's been raised as a result of that. On the cover of today's This Day, we have 23 states run local security outfits as groups demand decentralized policing. This is the reality of today's Nigeria. 23 states are trying to take matters into their own hands. So where does the presidency stand on constitutional amendment, not just with regards to the police force, but just a general decentralization, that word again, federalism? Is that on the agenda for President Buhari at all?
Well, you know that this government, in whatever it does, is inspired by the APC manifesto. And if you go back to 2015 manifesto, and which was reproduced for 29 election, the issue is there. I think that the language of those who wish to see constitutional change differs from one environment to the other. The bottom line is that Nigerians want some form of devolution of power And this is what the APC subscribes to, and this is what the Nigerian government under President Muhammadu Buhari stands for. We always have our differences from some of the advocates because in our own case, we think that that a constitutional democracy has institutional support structures that are existing, that are known and identified by the Constitution. When you have institutions like the Parliament, which is a representative of, which encapsulates represents repository of national sovereignty. All of our people are represented there. Under our own constitution, it is the Parliament of Nigeria that should amend the constitution and for the president to concur on the Parliament at the center and the 2/3 of the parliaments in the states before a constitutional amendment is effected. Now, a lot of the crowd out there you have that is shouting for a lot of these things, they are asking for changes to be made outside the framework of the Constitution. To do that will amount to a revolution, to an overthrow of the Constitution, and it will not be permitted. So I think that Nigerians should accept the fact that we have a sitting parliament in which our sovereignty is reposed, and it is duly mandated to carry out all of the changes, including state police and whatever people aspire to get. It is for it to get parliamentary approval. And Nigerians should be trusting in these institutions. If anybody is not satisfied with the quality of the representation in their constituency, thinking that, no, this guy will not convey our sentiment or our own views or on the given issues of the day, then go there and stand in the election next time it is open. Because that is the beauty of Constitution. It is rotatory. And the opportunity then for you to sack that parliamentarian that is not doing the change you want, then you put another one that can do what you want. I think it's as simple as that.
Madam Shehu, let me bring you up on another topical issue, actually also on the front page of This Day Today, the federal government to replace the ERGP with medium-term economic blueprint. Now, the ERGP, as we know, runs out this year, 2020, and the targets that were set for the ERGP certainly were not reached. For example, we were looking at 7% economic growth by now, I believe, or by this year, and we're on an economic growth level of 2.3%. And there's a lot of discrepancy when we look at what we set out to achieve and what we actually ended up achieving in the end. What hope can the Nigerian people have that this medium-term economic blueprint is going to be any better than the plan before? Is this successor going to come with new, fresh targets? Are we looking at similar targets? What exactly can we expect from this? We also have reports of talks about Vision 2040. I mean, we've just come into 2020 talking about how 2 past presidents within the past 20 years had spoken about Vision 2020 so strongly, yet here we are. What exactly are we expecting in terms of Vision 2040?
I will say to you that I think that you should look to the Secretariat of the Presidential Economic Advisory Team. They had a meeting on Saturday in the State House. On Saturday, we were representing the president at a wedding event, Nuhu Ribadu and the family and all of that. I have not been briefed about the outcome of the meeting. And I congratulate this day for scooping that important story. But I think that the details would have to be issued either by that secretariat or await the brief that I or Femi will get. I haven't been briefed about the outcome of that meeting.
Well, Garba Shehu, we have just very short, a few more minutes on this conversation. So we'd like your, response to be very brief. Now, on the security situation in Nigeria, do you really think that the federal government can confidently claim that is doing its very best, considering the challenges we've seen in recent times, particularly in the northeastern part of the country? Can you, with confidence, speak on behalf of the federal government and say, well, the federal government is doing more than enough?
Let me tell you, Ruben, in all sincerity, that I believe that Nigeria is doing as excellently as anybody could do in the circumstance. Don't forget that all of these things have foreign links. look at all of the things that are happening in Kenya, in Somalia, and in the entire Sahel. This Sahel is under attack by elements that have been flushed out of Iraq and Syria and Libya. And the fact that Nigeria is able to push all of these elements out to the fringe sides of our border, I think that our armed forces are doing well. I hope that in due course, with the combined support from all of the elements in Sahel, France has just called the French-speaking Sahel countries to a meeting today in Paris. So all of these things will come together, and we just have to flush out these elements, foreign elements that are disturbing us from the Sahel and the Sahara.
Well, thank you very much, Garba Shehu. That's all we'll be able to take this morning. And by the way, I received a text message from someone saying, oh, I should congratulate you that you handled the personal questions very well. Anyway, thank you very much. All the best with the rest of your week.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.